This is our last seminar this academic year. Thank you for uh, joining us in June. Today we have a pleasure of hosting Fei Li from Chapel Hill, and the talk title of the presentation is Algorithmic Attention and Content Creation on Social Media Platforms. We have also two panelists with us, so Ellen Muir and Hesky Bar Isaac. Thanks for coming. The format is as usual, 1 hour plus Q&A at the end, 15 minutes. The talk is recorded, broadcasted. Feel free to ask questions in the chat. We will monitor the chat. And yes, please take it away.
All right, thank you so much. And I want to say my co-author Yichen is here, and he cannot talk, but he can answer a question in the chat. But also feel free to interrupt me. We have an hour, and I'm sure I have time to handle all the questions. So this is joint work with Yichen and Marcel, and they're both in Cornell Johnson. So we think about attention allocation on social media platform. Okay, let me see. All right. So we all know social media. A lot of people spend a lot of time on social media platforms, and we have some numbers here. But also the social media platform also gave the opportunity for advertisers to have another channel to reach consumers. And we have some number here. So for leading platforms in the US, Europe, and China, many of them, I'm sure you use many of them. They have large number of users. They have to manage large number of contents, could be videos, could be articles, could be other things, and they make a lot of money. In order to manage content creator and the users at this level, most of those social media platforms use algorithms to decide who sees what. So what we want to do is trying to provide a theoretical framework and to understand the consequence of algorithm allocation of consumer attention on social media platform. So this is a paper about the social media platform. Let me mention that we capture these three components in the following ways. It's a social media platform because the content on those media are produced decentralizedly by some users who could have heterogeneous costs, who have different heterogeneous talent. It is a media platform because it's a place where we host contents instead of selling product. And the platform feature is captured by the idea that the platform is making money through showing consumer advertisement and using a algorithm to allocate who sees what. When I use the word algorithm, don't get me wrong, this is not a computer science paper, so we don't focus on the specific computation process. What we focus on is the outcome of algorithm allocation. So in other words, this is going to be a mechanism design paper, and the mechanism going to decide who sees what. And we want to highlight the key trade-off of attention allocation in this framework. Because the platform eventually care about revenue from advertisement, it face the trade-off between multiple ways of utilizing consumer attentions. One way is direct monetization. So this is by showing consumers some advertisement, the platform is able to charge the advertiser, and this is the ultimate way the platform make money. There is an indirect way the platform can utilize consumers' attention. It's more like an investment or production. So the platform can show the consumer some content created by some content producers. If those producers care about the exposure or getting attentions, the platform can use those attention as a threat or incentive to ask the creator to increase the quality or exert more effort to benefit all the consumer and bring more consumer to the platform. When you do that, there will be more attention you can extract or monetize in the future, right? So this is the key trade-off in attention allocation of social media platforms allocation algorithm we want to highlight. So given this trade-off, we want to understand uh, if you have flexible way to allocate attentions, what would be the best way to resolve this attention? But sorry, this trade-off. But to think about this trade-off seriously, you think of this each of the channel of utilizing consumer attention, incentive problem going to be serious, going to be deeply involved. From the monetization channel, in order to convince the consumer to watch advertisement, which is not the most interesting thing from the consumer's perspective, you have to combine those advertisement with interesting content the consumer are willing to watch. And you have to combine carefully to manage the consumer's participation incentive. On the other hand, if you want to use consumer attention to leverage the producer's incentive and then generate better, higher quality contents, you also need to take care of both the consumer and producer's incentive. So to seriously model the incentive we mentioned in both channel of utilizing consumer attention, we choose to model this problem as a two-sided screening problem. The agency friction is asymmetric information. And in that way, the algorithm work as a mechanism that screen both consumer side and the producer side, want the producer to work hard and want the consumer to watch more advertisement. And there will be heterogeneous taste and type of consumer and producers, which some of them will be those users' private information. So that's why we have a screening problem. And more importantly, because this is a two-sided market, and we will argue that there is an important source of complementarity between two sides, and then that will naturally give us some network effects. And importantly, when we do mechanism design, the attention allocation will decide who sees what. So the mechanism will endogenously determine the scope and the strength of network effects in the sense that who will be affected by the network effects and to what extent they will be affected. And in that framework, we show how to design the optimal mechanism to allocate attention to resolve this trade-off we just mentioned. And we use this model to think about the interaction between advertisement market and the algorithm attention or content recommendation accuracy. And then what's the interaction between them? What kind of policy implication we can derive? So that will be the research question. Is there any question?
Not so much a question. I just wanted to kind of flag the accuracy and the relevance of the attention that I think is an interesting feature of the model, but one that potentially could be developed even further. I think we'll see as we go forward.
Okay, very good. We are certainly not the first to think about this question, social media platform and design, but so there are literature on social media platform. There are also a big literature on platform design, which focus on e-commerce. And our model you can also think of as an exercise to match consumer side and producer side. So there's some flavor of matching there. But due to the time restriction, I wouldn't spend much time on the literature. And if we have time when we finish this, I can go back to discuss the literature. Okay, let me jump to the
Can I just flag one paper that you don't have? So there's a guy called Srinivasan who is a Chicago PhD. I think he's in Michigan now. He still has a working paper called Paying Attention, where he runs some experiments. So he gives people some more attention and shows that that does indeed affect the influencer behavior and that they produce more if they're seeing more likes and things like that. So
Okay.
it's to some extent a kind of empirical validation of some of the key assumptions in the model that attention does indeed affect the influencer behavior. So I think that'd be a useful one
Very nice. Yeah, we will
take a look at and to
take a look
hold
at
on.
that. Yeah, very nice. Thank you. All right. So it's a two-sided market. There will be content producers, there will be content consumers. So we want to capture both horizontal and vertical difference. So there will be a continuum of producers, and each producer has two-dimensional of characteristics. One is their horizontal category. For category, I want you to think about contents of dancing, singing, traveling pet, teaching economics on YouTube, things like that, right? This is trying to capture people who have heterogeneous taste uh, over different contents. We assume there are finite of those categories, and you can assume the capital N is arbitrarily big. The producer also has a vertical type, and this type capture the ability of the producer to or talent to produce high quality contents. There'll be some notation for the measure of producer and the type distribution. I don't think you need to remember those. Each producer is able to produce only one unit of content. So this is the margin we play with, but you can easily think about quantity as the margin, but we focus on quality. We fix the quantity as one. And a producer can affect the quality of the content in the following way. If your ability is theta, you can exert effort E to generate Q in the following this production function. As a producer, you hate exerting effort, so there is a cost of doing that. For simplicity, we just assume very simple linear costs, but you can make it more general, and that means you're going to have a little bit more complicated algebra, but nothing economically would change. And as exchange to generate content, you will benefit from receiving attention. Let little x to be the total attention you receive, how many people pay attention to you, and you like to have more attentions. And the important underlying assumption is that this U function need to have some curvature. We don't want it to be linear, because then we're going to have a linear model in any dimension, then the problem won't be interesting. So we need some non-linearity in the utility function. But A could be concave, it could be concave, and in some other area being convex, that's not a problem.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Did you have a specific micro foundation in mind for why the producers care just about attention? Because I guess the functional form here is what's kind of driving the provision of cross-category content kind of later in the paper. So given that that's quite an important assumption, I was wondering, I suppose this partly goes back to Pesky's empirical paper that he mentioned earlier, but had you thought about why the producers care equally about users within their own category versus cross-category?
Very good. So here, as Alan mentioned, the utility depends on the total amount of attention, doesn't distinguish the source of it. Later, I will introduce consumer, and you will see there will be heterogeneous consumer taste. And so in this model, for simplicity, we assume that the underlying assumption is that the producer going to benefit from more consumers' attention. And we do not distinguish consumer with different preference in terms of computing the producer's attention. You can think of there will be consumer who really care about the producer's output, and there will be some people who don't care about the producer's output that much. And for now, we don't distinguish them, but as a robustness check, we considered the possibility where the producer value consumer who like his output better than others and put more weight and put less weight on those consumers' attention who doesn't care. You can think of those consumer who doesn't really care about the producer's output, will spend a little bit time on the work and then may just move on and see something else. But in any case, if you think of those consumer will still pay a little bit attention to the producers, the producer will value that. Why do we make this assumption? That goes back to the deep assumption why producer care about ultimately care about attention. There are many reasons a producer will care about their attention. It could be for a psychological reason. I just want my work to be seen by the world. There could be career concern. I want more people to see me, so the platform will and other third party will see I'm a superstar, and in the future I will have opportunity to get advertisement opportunity, or I may be able to do live stream selling. Right, this is a very popular model in especially in China. If you are a super influencer, you will be able to sell some stuff in your live stream space. So that will bring you a lot of benefit. And also you can think of there will be opportunity you can run private sponsor advertisement. Those are the opportunity that depends on the number of the amount of attention you receive. Okay, so even though some of the consumer may not like your work that much, but as long as that create the feeling to third party or the advertiser you are super influential, those going to be valuable to the producers. So you can think of one of the example as on TikTok, on Twitter, there used to be a lot of people purchasing followers, even though those followers are fake, but people still find it valuable to purchase that to create this image that I'm influential, I have a lot of attention and followers. So that's the underlying.
I mean, I could believe some of that is just to affect the algorithm and
Yes,
to affect you being
exactly. So
you being featured, and that's not really an aspect here.
right. So you can think of some of those are not orthogonal to the algorithm, things like the
Absolutely.
opportunity I can get from offline, and some of those opportunity I can get from third party. And then later in this paper, actually we will introduce monetary transfer between the platform and the content creators. And then that will sort of endogenize the value of attention a little bit.
I don't want to flog a dead horse, but
Yeah.
you know, you're going to be on YouTube. You probably have no interest in being shown in people who are looking for cat memes, and the people who look, But on the other hand, maybe we should think of these categories and mixing across categories as a little bit narrower. Maybe
Yeah.
you're happy enough to be shown to CS guys or to
Yeah.
mathematicians or whatever, you get
Right.
stuff
So
out of
maybe
that.
it's easier to answer that question when I show you the second part of this page.
Sure.
Yeah. So we have the consumer side have horizontal category. So this is the category the consumer find it most interesting. And then the consumer also has vertical type that capture the valuation from consumptions. So the idea is the consumer can watch as much content as possible. And for each unit of content, he will have to pay costly attention and he may get some benefit. So as I said, the horizontal category specification is a way to capture that people have different taste. People develop utility differently from different kind of type of contents. And to capture that difference, we make this start assumption by saying that if you, as a consumer, pay attention to one unit of content, you first of all have to incur a cost. That's your attention cost. And if that content belong to the category you find it most interesting, you will receive a utility V times Q times 1. This is the indicator function. And if you look at this formula, it may give you the feeling that we are making very strong assumptions saying that the consumer only like one categories, only derive utility from one unit, one category. But we don't have to literally interpret the model in that way. You can think of there is a standalone utility the consumer will receive from any type of contents. And then we just normalize that to be zero because in the baseline model, we don't have money. What matter is the difference between the utility the consumer receive from one category compared to another one. And we focus on this difference, and that will be the additional utility the consumer get from the content that belong to the category you find it interesting. Right? And in general, we don't have to assume that the consumer only get the benefit from the utility in his own content. So I guess that go back to Hansky's question. So I definitely care about audience in economics to watch this video on YouTube, but there may be other benefit I can get from computer science audience. But here, I care about the value I derive from econ and computer science. I care about that difference. I kill away, I normalize the baseline utility to be zero. If you want to add it back, it wouldn't change the analysis that much.
Can I ask, does this mean that the consumer basically is not a non-strategic player, at least at this point, right? Because
that's not true. The consumer will be a strategic player, and later, because we're going to do a mechanism design exercise, we have to respect the consumer's incentive compatibility constraint. So here I'm just introducing the payoff structure. Right? It would be easier for me to talk about the strategic interaction.
He's gonna choose to, he can either watch or not watch, essentially.
You can do a lot of things. Yeah. Okay.
Can I ask clarifying questions about this horizontal category? It seems that everything is independent on I and J, so distributions and everything. How they are related? Why not n equal 1?
Why not n? Oh, so first of all, we're gonna have heterogeneous size of categories, and then this go back to Alan's question. So there are some independence on the consumption side, but from the producer's perspective, he care about both his within category consumers' attention, and also cross category consumers' attention. And later we will see that there will be some interaction across those categories. So does it answer your question?
Yes, yes, thank you.
Yeah.
I'll look forward.
Yeah. So one of the reasons we capture this horizontal category is that we truly want to have a unified model that can be as rich as possible to provide a foundation for applications. And then one of my college classmate is a big influencers, and then he told me that all those influencers who have some audience of fans in their own category, this person is doing education consulting, and then their ultimate goal is trying to reach to cross-category fans to expand the influence to consumer who is not in their circles. And this make us to think that we definitely need to think about the horizontal differentiations. And then later I will show you that there will be interesting interaction across categories. So
maybe this is the wrong time to make this point, but this is something I wanted to come to. Here, the efforts of the creator are purely vertical and only within the category that they're in. The story you gave suggests that I might want to create content across different horizontal categories, or be broader in the kinds of things that I'm producing to have different kinds of appeal. So I mention it in part in a motivated way. So we had a student a few years ago, Zheng Gong, who's at CUHK Shenzhen, who was looking at bloggers and documented that, when nobody knows you, you have to kind of really produce something that someone is excited about. And once you start getting audience, then you can start broadening out. So he has a paper called Growing Influence that has a kind of reputation-based theory model around this, and a bunch of empirics about starting very narrow and then spreading out the kind of stuff that you produce.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I think it will be so here we for tractability we can only
Sure.
have the offer to do that, but I can imagine so one of these extension you can do is that, for example, the value or the quality will not only affect the benefit of the consumer in your own category, but may also affect the utility of consumer
Yeah,
who
mean,
watch that in a different category, but
I'm not
in a
suggesting it needs to
different way.
be here, but I mean, that's why I was not sure this was the right time. It was
Yeah.
more a kind of other things for the next paper, because I think
Right,
there's a lot.
right. So there is several directions we can go, and I'm happy to talk about how to perturb this model and to what extent we can keep it tractable. And as you can imagine, you don't want to deal with a multidimensional mechanism design problem in this applied paper. But I think we have figured out some way we can keep the single dimensional private information, but still capture a little bit more of the cross category impact. But for the base model here, I don't have that. Yep. All right. So content production, content consumption, those two components are here. And content distribution is by the algorithm. So the platform is the only bridge between consumer and producers. The platform ultimately want to encourage the producer to exert effort and provide high quality contents. And the reason he want to do that is because that's the only way you can induce the consumer to watch more advertisement, which going to bring you some profit. So because the two-sided interaction we want to focus on is between consumption and production, so we simplify the advertising side by saying that for each unit of consumer impression, if you show the consumer advertisement, the platform gonna get a profit Z. This is a constant number. You can think of the platform is running a auction and all the advertiser have common value Z, and then they just beat like virtual competition. You can also think there is a perfectly competitive advertisement market and the price is Z. And then as a platform, you are just one of the price taker in the market. You can trade attention at this price. In either way, it's a simplified assumption, and Z going to be a parameter we play with later and to derive some policy implications. So I want to briefly mention the information structure. We assume the platform cannot observe users' vertical types. That means I do not know how much the consumer will value high quality content. The little v, I don't know. How talented the producer is, I also don't know. But what I do know as a platform is that we assumed the platform know the horizontal category each consumer and producer belong to, because if you can produce dancing video, it's going to be very difficult for you to pretend to be someone else producing other type of videos. If you care about the travel or pet as a consumer, there's no economically interesting reason for us to talk about the misalignment or the incentive to lie by the consumer. So the platform can easily elicit those information by simply asking consumer some question or have a few round of interaction and keep tracking what you have watched. But how much a consumer want to enjoy some content, or how efficient a producer can push his effort to improve the quality, those may be fluctuating over time, or maybe it's very difficult to perfectly predict. So we assume those are private information. And more importantly, we assume the output, the content quality will be observed by the platform. This is motivated by the idea in the real world, those platforms can run some experiment to learn the popularity of contents. So suppose there is a content being uploaded. In principle, as a platform, I can show it to a random 50 people. If a lot of people find it interesting and finish that, I may send it to another random 500 people. If a large fraction of consumers find it interesting, I would send it to a random 5,000 people. Because this is on the internet, the platform can easily find a large number of people over the world, and he can do this quickly and learn the popularity of the quality. So we decide not to capture the remaining imperfect observability of quality, so we just make it public information. All right, what the algorithm does. Ultimately, the algorithm gonna mix contents with different categories, different quality, and advertisement together. And for each consumer type, the algorithm gonna make personalized consumption bundle recommendation. Okay, and on the supply side, the algorithm gonna serve as a incentive scheme and telling the producers, if you bring me a content with certain level of quality, as a return, I'm gonna give you this much of attention, right? And as a producer, if you understand this incentive, you're gonna privately choose the right amount of effort and provide the right amount of quality and then get the right amount of attention. That's the way the platform can make sure there are enough interesting content being he can circulate. And on the consumer side, I have to bundle things together in a way that the consumer understand. For each recommended bundle, there will be some advertisement I don't find it interesting, but there is a large fraction of contents I will enjoy. And in expectation, I will follow your recommendation and watch it, even though I know occasionally some advertisement will bump up. And if I don't, as in say on YouTube, if I'm not paying for the premium subscription, I have to tolerate for 15 seconds and finish the advertisement. But I can do it because I truly enjoy the interesting content after that 15-second advertisement. But you have to do this mix very carefully. You don't want to make 90% of the recommendation to be advertisement, and then no consumer is willing to accept that. So that will be our consumer side incentive to manage. But the underlying assumption is that we assume there's no cherry picking in the sense that when the consumer, in this model, we assume when the consumer accept the recommendation from the algorithm, he cannot cherry pick, only pick the content he find it interesting and spend no time on advertisement and then uninteresting content. That's not allowed. In reality, consumer may be able to imperfectly cherry pick, but cannot perfectly cherry pick. So our result will still hold if you allow imperfect cherry picking in the sense that I maybe spend all my time on interesting content, but whenever there is an advertisement, I watch that for a couple of seconds and then I walk away to go to refrigerator and then eat something or have drink and then come back after 15 seconds. I can do that, but you cannot perfectly skip it. As long as you can't perfectly skip it, our result will still hold. Okay, and I don't think I will have time to talk about that, but in the paper we do have a implementation where we can implement the optimal mechanism as a sequential optimal stopping problem. So in the sense that for each category, there will be a common feed, and then a different type of consumer with different valuation will decide when to stop. Lower value consumer will stop early and watch less, spending less attention time. Higher value consumer will watch more and then spend more attention on the feed. Okay. So
if you're not going to spend time on it, I'll just add that implementation is very nice, and I'd almost lead with it over the mechanism design approach. It's much more natural, I think.
Thank you so much, and hopefully I'll have time to talk about this. And then, all right. So let me give some simple example to audience that to demonstrate the basic tension here. One simple algorithm we can think of is this so-called unbiased recommendation. Suppose the algorithm will recommend all the contents to consumer who are in this category. So economic audience receive all the economic content, computer science people receive all the computer science contents, but there's no quality control. Whatever contents in that category, if that box is checked, I would recommend it. But if that's the case, producers will have no incentive to exert effort and improve the quality. So consumer will anticipate zero quality and nobody gonna participate, and no advertisement revenue can be generated. You can do some simple things, say for content being recommended, it has to pass a minimal quality threshold, has to be bigger than that. If that's the case, some high ability producer will exert effort, make sure he produce a content quality exactly at that bar, because there's no reason to go above. And he will anticipate a fraction of consumer with sufficiently high value to join the platform and become his audience. And for low ability producers, because it's very costly for him to reach Q star, that level, so he would just opt out. And then some of the low value consumer will also decide not to join the platform. And because consumers are heterogeneous, there will be some consumer who gain positive surplus from this algorithm. That means you can, as a platform, you can try to extract some surplus from them. So you inject a fixed amount of advertisement into the recommendation, and that will make some of the middle value consumer opt out, but that will make some of the high value consumer to stay, and they're gonna watch advertisement because their value is so high. And so this will be a taxation problem in Econ 101, and the advertisement choice will be like the tax. And you can do better, you can do more. So imagine the algorithm not only recommend within category contents to audience, but if the cross-category contents is sufficiently good, right? The quality is higher than Q star plus something we call plus delta, the algorithm will also recommend it to everyone else. That means good econ papers, contents will be sent to econ audience. Good computer science content will be sent to computer science, but extremely good economic content will also be recommended to computer science people, computer science audience. What would happen is that for producer whose ability is high, understand that if I exert higher effort, I will reach to a broader set of audience. Those people may not value my content as much as my within category consumers. Here we normalize the utility to be zero, but as I said, we don't have to do that. We can just have another standalone utility. But the producer is willing to expand their always prefer to expand their audience as long as his cost is not so high. And for those producers, they're going to work harder in order to get cross-category impact. And why this is useful for the platform, because if those producers increase their effort, their content quality going to be higher. For those consumer who find those content interesting, the within category consumer, their utility going to be higher. So you will be able to inject more advertisement to the recommended bundle because those consumer surplus become higher. So in that sense, we have a cross-category network effect being activated. And you can see that this is beneficial even if we are in this very conservative framework where cross-category content generate no utility to consumers. In reality, you can imagine if the quality of the content is sufficiently high, maybe the utility generated is not as high as the within category consumer, but it may still generate some utility, right? So I may enjoy very good computer science papers, and that would just make our result even stronger. So you will have more reason as a platform to make cross-category recommendation. So here we're saying even without that, even the cross-category utility to 0, you still want to do it. Okay. And we want to do more general design. So we're going to focus on revelation mechanism. I'm going to focus on direct truthful obedient mechanism. A algorithm going to specify 3 type of functions. It will ask all the users to report their types, their utility, their valuation, and their ability. And then for each producers, the algorithm gonna make a recommendation of the production effort, and also gonna decide who pay attention to whom. So this is IJ, the consumer producers category, and the producers and consumers private type. And this XIJ just decide the fraction of consumer in this type pay attention to this type of producers. AJV gonna be the total amount of advertisement type VJ consumer will watch. And here we are doing direct mechanism, so everything is under control by the designer, but you can, in implementation, there are many ways to implement it, right? It doesn't have to be the platform decide all the advertisement. The platform can also delegate the how much advertisement the influencer to do to himself. Okay, and because users' vertical type is their private information, so there will be incentive compatibility we have to respect, and there will be participation constraint. And the problem of the platform is that you want to maximize the total amount of advertisement revenue. So this is the amount of advertisement you show to a consumer category J, value V, and you do the integration within the category, you sum the total those revenue across category. This is the amount of attention you can bring, you can monitorize. And remember, per unit of consumer attention can be monetized at $Z, but because it's a constant number, we don't have to worry about that. Just maximize the amount of attention advertisement displayed. And we can write down the producers' incentive compatibility constraint and participation constraint. Those going to be standard, so I won't spend time on that. And then also you have consumers, IC, and IR. So,
sorry, can I one clarification question?
Very
The
good.
attention here is not rivalrous. So
That's right. There's no.
okay.
So we assume that the attention consumers spend on social media platform is a small proportion of his total time. So in the spirit of partial equilibrium, so we assume this is a linear disutility instead of attention
People
budget.
might have different experiences, but
Right.
that's fine. That's fine.
It depends on your age, depends on, right? So the key is that we don't want to introduce something with like financial constraint in mechanism design or welfare effect, and because that will substantially complicate this problem and it won't be able to get clean characterization. But it's a legit concern. I understand that, right? All right, so let me highlight this mechanism design problem. We have network effect built in. The consumer's consumption of content will directly benefit producers, not through market transaction. So this is externality by textbook definition. And the producer's quality provision will benefit the consumer who are paying attention. So in the sense that we do have network effect, but this network effect is completely under the control by the designer. Which consumer pay attention to whom, and that would determine who will be affected by the network effect go through a particular producers. And in the base model, we don't have monetary transfer, so this attention allocation is the only incentive instrument to solve the incentive problem on both consumer side and the producer side. Under complete information, we have a very simple characterization. I have to go a bit faster because I think I only have 15 minutes. So under complete information, we want to focus on this case because we want to isolate the impact of network effect from the screening. So we kill the screening in the complete information benchmark. And you don't have IC anymore. And both producer and consumers IR must be binding for each type, each category. This is very simple because for consumer, if the consumer's IR is slack, you just inject more advertisement to the consumer's bundle to benefit from the advertisement revenue. If the producer's IR is slack, you simply just ask the producer to work harder, and that will improve the quality, which will relax the consumer's IR, and which will allow you to inject more advertisement. So you will never have any user's IR to be slack. And when you have an IR constraint, we can use the standard Meyerson trick. From the consumer's perspective, the total amount of advertisement attention costs he spent must be equal to the net benefit he received from watching contents, because his IR is binding. He receives zero surplus. The platform care about the advertisement, but equally you care about each consumer type's surplus from watching content. Right? And the consumer here in the simplified model only derive benefit from within category consumption. And we can write it down as the objective function. And then because the producer's surplus is also zero, so the effort the producer incur must equal to the utility he received from attention. There is a non-negative constraint because the advertisement cannot be negative, but there won't be a problem as long as the attention cost is small. So in the rest of the paper, we're going to focus on this, and this constraint won't be binding, will be slack. We have a network effect in this mechanism design problem because there is complementarity between attention and effort. Consumer pay more attention to producer, allow the platform to thread and incentivize the producer to exert higher effort, increase the quality, and more quality will bring more consumer attention, which give you more monetization opportunity. So if we simply think about the surplus of letting some consumer pay attention to some producers, the pointwise surplus can be written as this first order condition, so the first derivative term. And the first part is the pointwise surplus. Right? If the consumer derive utility from here, and then this will be positive. But also you direct the consumer's attention to a producer, it will activate network effect because that will push the producer to work marginally harder, improve the quality marginally higher, and that will benefit all those consumers who find his content interesting. And you can see here who will benefit from this quality improvement are those consumers who are in the producers category and have different valuations. So this is XII. But exactly how many of those consumers and to what extent they will benefit from this network effect determined by XII. So this is part of the design. And this tells us that we can't simply do pointwise maximization. The network effect has to be taken into account. And then you're going to have a system of first order condition to take care of. We show that we solve this problem completely. So the optimal allocations gonna divide the space of producers into 4 sets. Let me be specific. So the horizontal line represent the producer's ability, vertical represent the amount of attention he received from the optimal mechanism. Beta I is the measure of consumer in this producer's own category. Beta is the total measure of consumers, right? The best you can receive is you reach to the entire internet. And capital XI theta is, according to the optimal mechanism, the total amount of attention this particular producer receives. It comes from within category consumers' attention and cross categories consumers' attention. We call this extended reach. So the total attention being allocated is always non-decreasing in the producer's ability. More able producer receive more attention. And in this zero surplus world, under complete information, that means the effort must be weekly increasing as well. What is interesting is that to implement this capital X function, we use consumers' attention following a pecking order. For those producers whose ability is sufficiently small, it's too costly to activate the network effect to incentivize them, so we give them up. They should receive no attention. For those people whose ability is in the middle, they will receive only within category consumers' attention, but no cross-category impact. What is interesting is that at this inclusion cutoff, there will be a jump. This is guaranteed. There is a jump. So either the producer receive no attention at all, but if you're a slightly higher ability producer, you will receive a lot of attention. This result comes from the assumption that attention and effort are complementary. So for these marginal producers, if the platform want to include him, you have to give him enough attention to incentivize his effort. But if you only ask this producer to exert epsilon effort, then the quality of his product gonna be extremely low. And whoever pay attention to him will suffer with some disutility, and that will crowd out the amount of advertisement they are willing to watch. So if the platform want to include somebody, you have to ask him to work very hard. And in order to do that, you have to give him sufficient amount of attention. Okay? This is the within category complementarity between action and attention. And then when the producer become more able, and you want to incentive them to work harder, because when their theta become higher, 1 unit of additional effort gonna increase the quality so much. But they already receive attention of all the within category consumer. So the only way you can reward him even more is to bring some extended reach, some attention from cross-category consumer. And remember, we have discussed this before. Here, the producer do not care where the attention come from, but in reality, you can imagine maybe the producer care about the cross-category consumers' attention a little bit less than the within category attention. Maybe there's a discount, but as long as he marginally value those cross-category consumers' attention, our mechanism will still survive.
But
Okay.
just to be clear, these thresholds depend on the beta eyes, I guess.
Very good. Yes, that's actually a very good observation. So let me be more specific on this page. So because this is a two-sided market, there must be subsidy. And here, instead of using money to subsidize one side to leverage network effect, there's no money. We have to use attention distortion to do subsidy. But we have heterogeneous consumer type and a heterogeneous producer. So the subsidy must be type dependent. So for those producers whose ability is low, they are included, but they will be subsidized by within category consumers. What do I mean? So if the producer's ability is low, even we encourage him to work very hard, the quality of his content is still going to be low. It can only justify attention paid by the consumer of his own category when those consumers' valuation are sufficiently high. But that's not enough to motivate the producer to work sufficiently hard. So you have to bring him the attention from those consumers whose value are not that high. So exposed, those consumers will regret paying attention to those producers, but that's the subsidy you want to arrange. And then when the producer's ability become higher and higher, so he can justify all the producer attention paid by the within category consumer, no need to subsidize him anymore. But then when the producer become more able, you want to subsidize him by using cross-category attentions, just because you want him to work even harder. So the subsidy is non-monotone in terms of the amount, and also the composition will change. And as Hansky mentioned, that there are cutoffs, and those cutoffs will be function of consumer size and also the average distribution. If you have a niche category, say teaching information economics on YouTube, the size of consumer is probably not going to be that big. And because of the beta I going to be small, that will make all the threshold to be incredibly high. And how high? Or for some category, maybe the lowest cutoff will be above the upper bound of the ability. So in that sense, on platform, those category will never exist. And maybe there's some other middle value beta I category. The threshold of inclusion is not that high, but to have cross-category impact, theta IH going to be sufficiently high, or theta IM going to be sufficiently high, and nobody can reach that cutoff.
Oh,
Okay?
Fei,
Yes.
when you're looking at this figure, if you take a stand on what the social value of advertising is, do you have any sense of how this allocation differs from what a social planner would do if it is looking to maximize sort of joint surplus of producers, and then maybe take a stand that there's potentially some social value generated by ads, or you could maybe set that Z equal to 0 in the social planner's problem. But do you have any sense of whether it has the same structure or not?
Very good question. So we try that, and to have a user maximization algorithm, we do still have subsidy because the network effect is something you want to activate, but we don't have a very simple characterization simply because, under complete information, we do have characterization, but in the incomplete information case, we do not, because then we can't inject the virtual surplus, because then you want to maximize the consumer's true utility, and there may be some non-monotonicity things quickly go out of control. So we didn't get much result, but the distortion of attention allocation will be still there. It's just the allocation may not have cutoff structure. Okay, so I have about 3 minutes. Let me briefly talk about incomplete information. And
I
it
think
seems like
we interrupted you a lot, so I think if you go a few minutes more, that should be fine, because we were
okay.
sort of.
Thank you. Thank you so much. With incomplete information, the producer and consumer's vertical type will be privately known. So we have to we follow Meyerson's indirect utility approach on both sides. And then what changes that in the planner's problem, then in the platform's problem, you replace value by virtual value. And for the producer's efforts, you have indirect utility over there. And for both side of user, you have to pay them information rents. And we still have 4 category of producers, but all the cutoff will be shift up. Okay, why is that? Because with information asymmetry, it will be more costly to activate or utilize the network effects. All the consumer and producer whose type is not the lowest will request information rents, and that will make the platform want to increase the inclusion cutoff, because with incomplete information, whoever you include, you have to pay all the higher type information rents. You don't want to pay too much information rents. As a compromise, you increase the inclusion cutoff and abandon a large amount of consumer users with lower type. And also, there will be distortion caused incomplete information, but there will be interaction between those incomplete information and complementarity, so the distortion will be extended even for the top type space users. This is very simple, and this is similar to some of the result in the literature. So even if I'm the highest type consumers, I watch a large number of contents, some of them produced by high ability producers, some of them produced by low ability producers. Because the cutoff increase, so there will be less content for me to watch, and all those middle value producers, their action going to be distorted due to the incomplete information. So because of complementarity, my attention choice will also be distorted. Right? That's sort of what we have. And then this means that incomplete information will give us additional frictions that will make those niche category harder to survive. maybe there will be some category who can barely survive under complete information, right? Their beta I is not that big. But under incomplete information, the threshold become even higher, and those category will disappear. If you are willing to make some assumption on the utility function, and we can get a closed form solution for the minimal mass of consumer for us a category being to be survived under complete information and under incomplete information. But you can see that the threshold will only depend on the virtual value, expected virtual value of the consumer side, not the producer side. This is because we are talking about whether the top type of producer is able to pass the threshold. And at the top type, true type and virtual type are the same thing. So what matter is the information, the distortion of incomplete information on the consumer side and the mass of consumer in each case. If we think about this more carefully, where the information, incomplete information can come from, there could be multiple reasons. There could be technology reason where the platform's algorithm of identifying consumer type is not perfect. So I face residual uncertainty on the consumer and producer's vertical type. It could be also the case that I can find their characteristics and infer their private type. But regulations may restrict me from utilizing those characteristics to make personalized recommendation. So if we think about some of the regulation restricting the algorithm to make personalized recommendation, and this model gave us a policy trade-off. We can think of the complete versus incomplete information framework comparison as without regulation and with regulation, right? So the benefit of introducing those ban is to bring users some privacy benefit. Because under incomplete information solution, all the participating user will enjoy information rents. They won't get those much advertisement, right? This is similar to the literature where people use price discrimination, how perfectly you can do private price discrimination to capture privacy benefit. Here, we don't have price, but we still have information rents when we have advertisement. But those protection of consumers, users' privacy will come with a cost, because that's going to threat existence of those category of contents, which is marginal. Those may be the niche content on the long tail, which could exist if we are allowing perfect targeting recommendation, but if you ban it, they won't exist. And sometimes we care about those diversity of contents, so that they present us a policy trade-off. I'm gonna skip this effort part, and I guess I don't have time to talk about the implementation. Can I have another 3 minutes?
Sure,
Okay,
sure.
I will take that as yes. Okay, so as an extension, we also find this very interesting. So even though it's an extension, we think this is equally important as the main model. Some of the platform use monetary transfer to incentivize creation of contents. There are multiple ways to make this transfer. Maybe you can directly pay them if they are super good, or you can allow them to run some private sponsor advertisement to make money, or you can share profit advertisement revenue with those people. So in order to talk about that, we allow the creator to care about both attention and the money. So if you receive attention X, and pi will be the money metric reward to the producers, and capital T gonna be the amount of transfer you receive, and U will be the total utility. Those are all increasing function, and X and T must be positive. Negative X and T are not allowed. And so that means the direct mechanism specify not only the allocation of effort, advertisement, and attention, but also specify the monetary transfer. What would happen is that we're going to have very similar cutoff structure, but the way the algorithm incentivize creator is to mix the attention and the money together, especially for those high ability producers who will be rewarded by extended reach. So what happened is that we're gonna partition the space of the producer's ability into many subintervals, and then the pattern of incentive will alternate. In one subinterval, money is not going to be used. As ability become higher, the attention he receive will become higher. So this is the interval only attention is used to incentivize the producer. And when we move to the next subinterval, the amount of attention will stay constant, but positive. And then how are you going to incentivize higher ability people to work harder? You have to pay them more. Why is this alternate structure? Well, for provision of incentive, what matter is the money metric reward. This is the money metric attention value. This is the money to the producer. For each mechanism, in order to provide incentive at this level, the platform want to minimize the cost of providing this amount of incentive. You can provide this incentive in two ways. You can give attention, you can give money. And here I normalize money in the unit of attention. So divided by Z, this is per unit attention's monetary value. So you solve this cost minimization problem, face this constraint. But this is just a cost minimization problem. To characterize the solution, we can look at the corresponding utility maximization problem where you face a fixed budget, money attention metric budget, and then you choose X and T to maximize the amount of incentive you can provide. It turns out the deal can give us some intuition and learn some economics. The value function at pi hat of the maximization problem must be higher than pi, because I can always only use attention and not using money to provide the incentive. And the value function must be higher than, better than doing that. Between x prime and x, the difference between those two value functions value must be bigger than z times the difference between x prime and x. This is because from x to x prime, I can always only use money to incentivize the producers. And it turns out the value function is just the smallest function that is satisfying those two conditions. So that tells us if you draw the pi function, right, and then you can do this z arrowing, each of those here, make sure that the slope of pi hat is at least z, and at some point it coincides with pi, at some point is above pi, especially when pi's slope is too low.
I just lost track a little bit. So here, when you have money, you're still, when you talk about attention, there's kind of within category attention and cross category attention.
Yeah.
And those seem like quite different things to allocate. So
very good, very good.
When you have the cash as well, yeah, go ahead.
So here we focus on, because we still have the cutoff structure. So here we focus on those people who already receive full attention from within category consumers.
Very good.
And now we just talk about the cross category attention.
But those thresholds are going to change quite a lot because
exactly.
you have much less reason to use that cross category
exactly
when you have the cash.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And if we think about the choice between money and attention for low ability producer, things become way more complicated. The economics here will still be presented, but there will be other costs and benefits that we have to take into account. So we don't have a clean characterization for those low value producers. So we provide the characterization here. But let me finish this figure. So I like this figure a lot. So this figure means that for those people whose ability is relatively low, the value function pi hat and then the objective function pi will coincide. This means here, you're going to provide an incentive only by using attention. But if you go a bit higher theta, you'll notice pi hat will be linearly increasing, and then pi hat will be above pi. How are you going to provide incentive for people in this interval? Well, you give them attention, say, I need to give theta guy attention, yi hat, yi theta, right? So I have to reach this point. Then I just look at the last point where pi hat and pi overlap and give this guy this much of attention. But from here to here, how I make the pi hat to increase, use money. And then when I'm going to stop using money, right? I keep increase this linear function until some point I hit the pi function again, and then pi hat and pi will overlap. This give us the interval, the incentive pattern will be using attention only. And then we may go to here again, the slope of pi become too low, then we start to use attention and some money to jointly incentivize the creators. If you are willing to make assumption on the pi function, for example, a simple assumption will be, say, pi is concave, then there will be a threshold. For those people whose ability is above the threshold, you use money. Below it, you only use attention. Okay, so this, if you have different value of, if you have different pi function, if you have a different z function, the platform will choose different incentive pattern. And then the last, the policy implication I want to talk about is that different platform may have different profitability of advertisement. There will be some short video platform, long video, articles, right? And then we have a comparative statistics showing that if you decrease the monetary value of consumers' attention on the advertisement market, what happened is that you go back to the key trade-off in how to utilize consumer attention. Because Z is going to be lower, then it's less appealing to directly monetize consumers' attention by showing them ads. So you're going to use their attention to incentivize the producer more. So there will be more attention distortion. And you're going to use money less. So different Z may give us a way to rationalize why different platforms use a different way to incentivize creators. And another reason can affect Z is policy regulation. Maybe, for example, if we think about the policy regulation, banning personalized using consumer user characteristics to send them targeted advertisement, that will certainly lower the profitability of advertisement. But if you do that, it's good that you can give consumer less annoying advertisement, but you're gonna make the platform more hesitant to use money and have stronger incentive to use attention distortion to incentivize the producers, which means the consumer are gonna see more cross-category contents because the platform want to activate the network effects. And that will hurt the consumer in certain way because the content, the accuracy of content recommendation will be more biased. So this is another policy trade-off we present in this model by think about the interaction of optimally design in attention location and the advertisement market. I think I'm out of time, so let me skip the future research and then summarize the paper as a unified theory framework to highlight the trade-off of using attention. I don't think I have seen paper talk about this trade-off. And then having this trade-off, we have to endogenize the network effect. It means that there will be negative surplus match between consumers and the producer being formed. And then producer either going to be excluded or encouraged to work very hard to receive a non-trivial amount of attention subsidy. And we have two policy implications. We have talked about that before. Banning personalized recommendation can give the user privacy benefit, but threat the diversity of contents on the platform. And restricting targeted advertisement can reduce the amount of annoying advertisement, but there will be more distortion in attention allocation and bias recommendation. So thank you for your attention, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Yeah, thank you very much. So today we sort of intervened the presentation and questions were together. So I suggest we finish the official part of the talk. I'll officially thank everyone for coming, and I hope you'll join us next